Hey everybody, this is GGB co-host Peppers. We're going to go over my college basketball upset of the day Wednesday edition video. We're also going to go over what happened Tuesday and what upsets happened yesterday. And how I got to sitting at 2.5 points. So, let's go over the games that happened yesterday. So, we had number 24 Oklahoma traveling to number 5 Texas. And this was a pretty big matchup in the Big 12. You had the second team, the third team, and it lived up to the hype. A great game. Unfortunately, a weird ending. Like, why would you just chuck it that far in bounds when you had 2.5 seconds left? You could try and dribble down the court. Like, that play call was weird, very weird, especially since they were only down by 1 point. Like, you didn't need to, like, and you had 2.5 seconds left. Anyways, it was very confusing, but Texas ended up losing this game, being upset by Oklahoma. This let Oklahoma go to 6-3 instead of falling to 5-4, which would have had West Virginia past them. Okay, so it was an important game for Oklahoma. Less so for Texas; they keep the 2 spot no matter what. But now Oklahoma's only a game behind them, and now they're 2 games behind Baylor. So they really they don't really hold their destiny in their hands anymore. So that's what happened in the Big 12. Now, if you did not know, there were 3 huge SEC games, and some of them lived up to the serious hype. Kentucky-Alabama was a very close game for the majority of the game. Mississippi State-Tennessee came down to the very last shot. So it was interesting, but here's how it worked out. Alabama ended up winning, right? Kentucky couldn't hold on to the upset, right? So Alabama stays undefeated in SEC play. So very good. Alabama's having a fantastic year. I'm really excited to see this program's doing this well. LSU was able to avoid the upset from Texas A&M, so they stayed in the second place. Unfortunately for Florida, Tennessee was able to pass them with a win, but Florida plays Vanderbilt today, which is a likely win for them. So don't you worry, Florida. You should be in third place by the end of today, as long as you don't get upset by Vanderbilt, which probably isn't going to happen. Missouri ended up being upset by Auburn, so that means Auburn moved from what they were at the 10th spot up to 9, 8, 7. They moved 3 spots upwards, which is very impressive for Auburn. Kentucky slumped a little bit more downwards and is continuing their not-so-great season. It's a weird season where John Capillari is not competing for an NCAA championship, but this game's not even going to come close this year. You really got to, if you're a Kentucky fan, hope you win the SEC tournament, because that's the only freaking way you're getting in. So Mississippi State also ended up losing to Tennessee, so that really hurt them. It dropped them below Auburn, which really sucks if you're a Mississippi State fan. You go from being in 5-6 territory all the way down to 8. It really sucks, especially since you're being considered, like, you're up there, you're one of the top dogs. You're near Tennessee, you're near Florida, you're LSU, Alabama, and then you're dropped and you're down near Ole Miss and at Auburn. It's gotta suck for you Mississippi State fans, especially since you were so close to getting that huge win against Tennessee. So that's basically what happened in the SEC. I don't think I missed anything. Yeah, no, I'm good. The Atlantic 10. The Atlantic 10 was a little bit interesting. Nothing changed, which is what the interesting part was. St. Louis was ranked this week, 22nd, if I am correct. With a win, St. Louis would have taken first place in the Atlantic, right? Atlantic 10. Dayton was able to help everyone atop them. Literally everyone is saying, thank you, Dayton, at this point. Because St. Bonaventure, which is a team that I think is a really good basketball team, Davidson, VCU, Richmond, all teams that I think are very good, all got to stay where they were because of Dayton's win against St. Louis. St. Louis doesn't move down or up because they were 0-0, so therefore they're 0-1, and they're second to last place. Only ahead of St. Joseph, who's gone 0-8 this year in conference play. So nothing really changed in the Atlantic 10, which is what was so interesting about what happened yesterday. So, college basketball, we have a 5 o'clock game. We have 3 6s. We have 3 8s. So let's get into them. 5 o'clock, we have Miami, who's sitting 6-8, traveling to number 16 Florida State. Florida State's favored by 11.5 points in this game on ESPN2. Now, Florida State is only allowing 10.3 assists per game. They're having a fantastic year in the ACC. They slooped a little at one point. They ended up losing to UCF, which was a weird loss, and they ended up losing another one they really should not have lost. But they're back into the top 4, and really 4 of these teams in the top 5 is what I was expecting coming into the year. Obviously, we're always going to be talking about Virginia, Florida State, Louisville, UNC. Duke's really been a disappointment this year to me, but we're kind of back to what we're normally at in the ACC, Virginia Tech being the only exception up there, right? So, the big question is, what do you think is going to happen with Florida State? There's 2 huge ACC games, so why don't I go over what would happen in different scenarios for each one? So, at 6 o'clock, we also have number 20, Virginia Tech, traveling to Notre Dame. So, for some reason, Notre Dame's favored by 2 points in that game. I don't freaking know why, because I've watched enough Notre Dame basketball to know this year they're not very good. Like, they should not win this game. Thinking logically, unfortunately, Virginia Tech lost their second leading scorer, which might be the reason why they're having Notre Dame favorite. I don't know. I don't think this is a chance for an upset because I think Virginia Tech's too good of a basketball team. So, I think Miami's a better team than Notre Dame, and they're not even close to favored. Florida State's favored by 11.5 points. And I know you're saying Florida State's second in the ACC. Virginia Tech's third, and they only have like one more loss than Florida State. They're 5-2 in conference. Like, I don't know. If anyone could explain to me why in the world Notre Dame is favored in this game, I would like to have it explained to me because I don't understand this at all. But if Florida State was to win, they move to 6-1, right? That just keeps them where they're at really right now. Nothing changes really with a Florida State win and a Miami loss. Miami stays in third to last place, with Florida State staying in second place. Now, if Miami was to completely flip the tables, pull off an upset not anyone is really expecting, they could move up past Notre Dame and past NC State, just behind Syracuse, right? So it'd be huge. It'd be huge for Miami to be able to move out of that spot. 13th in the ACC. They could move all the way up to 11th, sorry. Move from 13 to 11. It's a pretty significant hop. Trust me, you should not be complaining, Miami. I mean, it's nice when you're in the bottom if you could take a hop upwards. A Florida State upset would be awesome to have on your resume, especially going into ACC tournament. That's really where you're going to have to try and make your mark, try and get in that way, because I don't see you getting in on your own just by resume. It's not going to happen, Miami, sorry. So that's what would happen with a loss, with a win for Miami. With a loss for Florida State, which would be a win for Miami, right? They'd fall to 5-2, and it could all depend on what happens in the Virginia Tech game. So if Virginia Tech was to win and Florida State was to lose to Miami, Virginia Tech can go into that number 2 spot behind Virginia, right? And they still have a game against Virginia, I'm pretty sure, on their schedule. So they just got to hope someone else beats Virginia, and they just need to keep winning. Now, if we ended up with both upsets, Florida State being upset by Miami and Virginia Tech being upset by Notre Dame, we could end up with some pretty crazy scenarios. Obviously, that would hurt Miami a little bit more. They'd only be able to move up to 12th because Notre Dame would move to 3-5 in conference, and Miami would move to 3-7. So, of course, the 3-5 team would be in front of them. Would also hurt Florida State and Virginia Tech a decent amount. Virginia Tech would fall to 5-3, which would make them fall below Louisville and UNC into the 5th spot in the conference from being 3rd. With the Florida State loss, Louisville would pass them. So the worst Florida State can really do here is fall to 4th. If Virginia Tech was to beat Notre Dame, Florida State was to lose, Florida State would fall to 5-2, and that would Virginia Tech would go to 6-2, right? They would move to the 2 spot and just go purely off a record. Florida State would have a 9-3 record, while Louisville has a 10-3 record. So Louisville would move to the 3 spot. So but it's not like horrible news for Florida State. Only falling to the 4 spot. So not anything too drastic happening there. Now we have the Big East. Only one Big East game today, but it's a pretty big one. So Creighton is taking on Seton Hall. This is a huge game in the Big East. It determines a lot. Who's second place? Who's third place? If Creighton was to win this game, which they are favored by 1.5 points, it's supposed to be a very close game, which I 100% agree with. The way Seton Hall's playing, it's going to be very interesting. I think they're a great basketball team. They almost beat Villanova. So, I mean, Seton Hall's playing some fantastic basketball, so it's going to be interesting to watch. if Seton Hall was to lose to Creighton, Creighton lose to 8-3, it doesn't really affect them that much other than staying right behind Villanova's tails, right? Now, if Seton Hall was to lose, they'd fall to 6-4, which unfortunately for them, UConn would have a better win percentage, so they would fall below UConn. So obviously Seton Hall wasn't one to lose. If they are to win, they move to 7-3. Creighton would fall to 7-4. Seton Hall can take that 2 spot. So obviously you want to be in the 2 spot because whoever's ever in the 2 spot, if you beat Villanova or anyone beats Villanova, they've only played 5 games. So automatically you're in a position where you could probably take that. You could probably take the 1 spot with wins. You just need to start putting them together. Seton Hall and Creighton need to stop crumbling in on themselves if they really want to get this spot. It's just the fact of the matter. It's going to be really interesting to see how that ends up working out in the Big East. Now going to the Big Ten. We only have one more conference after that. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, I forgot this game in the ACC. Louisville also plays today. So, if Louisville was to win, they could move to 6-2 as well, and 11-3, which would put Louisville can move into the 2 spot with a win today, a Virginia Tech loss, and a Florida State loss. So, it's going to be interesting. But with a Clemson win, they can move to 4-4, and past Georgia Tech, just move up 1 spot. But it would be huge for a Clemson team that's really fallen from grace in 3 games. They've allowed 10 threes made at least in the last 3 games. So, obviously, there's 3 huge ACC games today. I'm excited to watch them. The Big Ten has 2 pretty big games today, so let's go over them. So, in Big Ten basketball, we have at 6 o'clock Penn State, which is at 5-6, traveling to number 13, Ohio State. Now, Ohio State guard Washington Jr. leads the Big Ten in 3-pointers, 45, and free throw percentage at 89.3%. Ohio State's having a really great year basketball-wise. At 8 o'clock, we also have number 14, Wisconsin, which is sitting at 12-4, traveling to Maryland, which is sitting at 9-7. Just looking at the rosters, Wisconsin should win this game, but the Terrapins won the last matchup 70-64, so it's going to be interesting to watch. So let's go over what would happen with a win. So if Ohio State was to win this game against Penn State, which is in all likelihood the likely scenario, right? Ohio State moves to 7-3. 7-3 is a better record than 6-3, so they can move past Wisconsin and Illinois with a win. Now, obviously, Wisconsin plays today, so you have to hope for them to lose if you're an Ohio State fan. So if you're an Ohio State fan, got to root for yourself to win, obviously, and a Wisconsin loss would help you out dramatically. You can get all the way to the 3 spot today. Now, with a loss, Penn State wouldn't move. They just move 2-6 in conference. They stay in the 13 spot, mainly because they basically have the 13 space on lockdown. Like, that's the lowest they can really go. I mean, I don't see Nebraska winning 2 conference games. As long as Penn State is able to beat Nebraska the 2 times they play them, they should be in the 13 spot at the very least. I think they can move up high today. If they were to win, if they were to upset Ohio State, which hurts Ohio State more than it helps Penn State, it doesn't hurt. I mean, obviously, it would be huge for Ohio State to win this game. But if you lose, you fall to 6-5, which means Purdue would pass you. But it's not such a huge deal because you're still in 6th place. You're still ahead of teams like Minnesota, Indiana, Rutgers, Maryland. Teams like that. If Penn State was to win, they could move to 3-5, which means they could go boop, boop, past Michigan State and Maryland. Now, if you're a Penn State fan, obviously you're rooting for Wisconsin tonight. You want to be able to get as high as possible because, let's be honest, Penn State's not getting in on their own merits. So Big Ten Conference Tournament, really the only way they can officially get in, right? So that you want a highest seed as possible. Obviously, you're not going to win the Big Ten this year. That just doesn't seem like a possibility, right? But things fall right. You could get into the 8-9 area. 8-9's area is all you really need as long as you're on a hot streak, right? And Penn State, it's weird. I agree. They started out 0-5, but does that remind you anything, Penn State fans? It's how the football team started 0-5, but then they went on. They went on to win their last 4 games, right? Penn State's on a win streak right now. They beat Rutgers at home, and they beat Northwestern at home. Fortunately, this is going to be their first road game, so they haven't really won on the road officially, like in the tournament, in conference play. This is their big test. I mean, they beat Rutgers, they beat Northwestern, but they're not top conference. Ohio State's top conference, so I'm going to be interested to watch this game as a Penn State fan. Jamar Wheeler's been playing some outstanding defense. The key to winning this game, if you're a Penn State fan, is Isaiah Brockington has to go off. Myron Jones has to make his wide open threes, and so does Lundy. For this thing to work, Jamar Wheeler's got to play some great defense, and Hara really needs to step it up inside. Outside of that, obviously you have Wisconsin taking on Maryland today. So what would happen with a Wisconsin win? They'd move to 7-3, which is a 70% win percentage. I don't believe that makes them pass Iowa, but it just officially it cements them in that 3 spot. With a loss, bad things can happen. You don't want to lose if you're Wisconsin. Obviously, if you're Maryland, moving to 4-6 would be very nice. You could pass Rutgers with a win. You could move to 10-7, and that would pass them at 8-6, right? So Maryland, it would be nice to get a win, especially for a team that just wants to get on in its own merits, which it really does have a chance of doing. Wisconsin, 2 wins against Wisconsin would be huge. Maryland has one of the weirdest resumes in the entire NCAA, although Minnesota has a pretty weird one as well, but Maryland has got to have one of the weirdest resumes. A win would be huge. You could pass Rutgers. That would get you into 8th place. It's a 1 spot away from being top half of the conference, which is very impressive if you're talking about Big Ten. Because if you're going to be talking about Big Ten, listen to these top 5: Michigan, Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, Ohio State. Those are all ranked basketball teams. Like, talking about top 5, that's insanely great. Now, Purdue is an underrated team, in my opinion. I think they will get on their own. Same with Minnesota, Indiana. So, yeah, you like this win if you're Maryland. Fortunately for Wisconsin, it would be detrimental to lose. Falling to 6-4 would suck. Not to mention the fact that 100% you're going to drop below Illinois. Like, if you're an Illinois fan, go Maryland, and then you'd be rooting for Penn State as well. You'd be huge Maryland and Penn State fans tonight, because with a win, Ohio State would move, in fact, past Illinois, and that would mean a moot point for Illinois. You'd just be switching out Ohio State for Wisconsin. Now, if both were to be upset, now we're talking about crazy stuff happening. But let's say Wisconsin is upset, they move to 6-4. Let's say Ohio State is upset, they move to 6-4. 6-5, they would drop below Purdue. So Wisconsin, really the lowest they can go is to fall to 12-5, and they'd still be ahead of Purdue. So the lowest they can really fall is to the 5 spot. That's really it. Even if Ohio State was to win, they could fall to the 5 spot. That's the lowest they can go. With a win, they can stay in the 3 spot. Like, those are the only 2 options, 3 or 5 spot. Illinois, obviously, I said this before, big Maryland and Penn State fans tonight. Okay, so we have one more game, pretty big one, at 8 o'clock. We have Kansas State traveling to number 2 Baylor, mainly because it's a big one, because Baylor's playing. Baylor I haven't seen them play in a while. Baylor's a great basketball team. Like, I mean, honestly, with either way, I mean, this isn't going to affect anything at all. I mean, obviously, if you're a Texas fan, you're heartbroken from last night. But dang, if Kansas State could help you, that would be so nice. Obviously, it's probably not going to happen. But dang, would it be nice if Baylor was sitting at 7-1. It seems a little bit more achievable than 8-0, right? Especially since you're 5-2. I mean, like, you're only a game out then. If they win, they're 2 games out. 2 games really hurts, because you got to hope 2 games go your way. Or, I think they only played Baylor one more time this year. Double check. Boo, boo, boo. Yeah, they only played Baylor one more time this year. So, again, huge game. Huge game. I mean, obviously, if you're a Texas fan, you'd really like Kansas State to help you out. They're probably not. I mean, let's be honest, Baylor's favored by 25 points. But dang, would that be sweet if you're a Texas fan. Obviously, you're a Texas fan. You're rooting for Kansas State tonight. If you're an Iowa State fan, you're probably rooting for Baylor, because really, the only way you can really get in is to win the Big 12 tournament, and it'd be nice if you could pass Kansas State for that 9 spot. If you're a Kansas State fan, obviously you just want to win. The ideal spot is to move past TCU, which is sitting at 2-4. 2 more wins would get you that. But the problem is they haven't won 6. They've lost 6 straight. Which means they started out conference play 1-1 in conference. Wow. Hey, man, has it gone downhill for Kansas State. So nothing really changes with a Kansas State win or a Kansas State loss, right? nothing really switched. Nothing really happens. But dang, would it be nice? Texas and Iowa State are going to be rooting for completely different teams today. But who does GGB think is going to pull off the upset today? Personally, I think the best team that has a chance to pull off the upset, which I've been pretty spot on so far this year. I'm not going to go with the spread this time. I'm going to go off my own merits. I believe it's Seton Hall. Seton Hall's been playing some phenomenal basketball. If I was going off of it, I was probably pick like Notre Dame to upset Virginia Tech, Clemson to upset Louisville. But I'm not sold on Clemson, and I'm definitely not sold on Notre Dame. Virginia Tech still has something to prove since they lost their number 2 player, but if it was anyone other than Notre Dame, I might pick them, but dang, Notre Dame's just not good this year. Seton Hall is pretty good. Let's be honest here. If you watch any Seton Hall game, you notice that the Pirates are a very good basketball team this year. Came down to the wire against Villanova. Seton Hall, it's really good. Creighton, on the other hand, is also very good. So I think it's going to makes for some must-see basketball. But I think Pirates have the best chance of pulling off. Let's hope so, because I would get 3.5 points with an upset. Everybody, this is GGB, Carlos Pepper saying adios amigos, and go Pirates.